Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to Test Flight in the MiG-15, and I'm on to takeoff and landing in this video. We're just going to taxi out to the runway, take off and land real quick, fly around a little bit, see if there's anything that I really want to cover as far as navigation systems. In this video, I don't think there will be, though, other than just powering up the systems and figuring out how to communicate and navigate a little bit. It's just going to be mainly just takeoff and landing. I'm going to run through the startup one more time, very quickly, and then just taxi straight out and get airborne. So let me bring the kneeboard up one more time, and I've got a new resource here. It's the MiG-15 bis guide. It's by TrackIR. It does a lot of great guides for not only the DCS aircraft, but for the Illusion 2 aircraft. Give us a lot back to the community. And I'm going to have a link to this as well as his YouTube channel. If you're interested in old World War II or aviation documentaries, he has a lot of great stuff there. You can just sit there for hours watching the stuff that's on his channel. I'll have links to both of these in the description below. Oh, but okay, startup. Let me go ahead and go to the communications menu, get some ground power on there from the ground crew. So power on, please. Okay, copy, and I have power coming on right now. Okay, so actually I've already done this out of sequence. Well, I guess I did learn something there, that I get the green lights when ground power comes on, but I was supposed to actually turn on the battery and turn on the generator switch before doing that. No harm, no foul. That's what we're here to do, is just to learn stuff. Okay, so we've got that. Let me step forward to, okay, now it's going to be turning on switches and getting everything configured. I know that it's everything on this section of the panel except for these two switches. I need to get this and this on. That's just going to be radio, radar altimeter. This is the emergency drop switch. I'm going to leave it off. This is the bomb switch. These are the gun switches, gun sight and gun camera switches. Those will stay off. Let me come over to my left panel. I go boost pump on, I go ignition on, I go instruments and lights, and this is the transfer pump, I bet. Yep, transfer pump on, and now that's configured. Now, looking around, was there anything else that I had figured out earlier that I wanted to do? I don't think there was, so at this point, I am ready to go ahead and pull the throttle back to idle. Yep, it is there, and I just need to raise the cover, press the switch, making sure that I'm clear with the crew chief for and aft before I do this. Okay, press the switch. Okay, ignition lights coming on. RPM's coming up. I'm looking for 600 RPM. I'm going to crack the fuel shutoff valve. This time I'm just going to slowly crack it open as I go, just watching the gauge and listening for the RPM to come up. I'm not worried so much this time about the percentage, like it said in the manual, 50% or what have you. I'm just going to slowly open it up. Okay, that's 2,000. I can go ahead and go. Yeah, that was already full open. So, yeah, I think before I was a little bit too hung up on the exact percentages, when all I really need to do was keep it on the gauge and then slowly crack the valve open, making sure that I didn't send fuel to the engine too quickly and that it was just going to come up on its own. So let me go ahead and run them up to 50%. Or not 50%, 5,000 RPM. I thought I was in an A10 there for a second as the MiG that just taxied takes off. Okay, 50%, gen light is off. Let me go ahead and get the canopy and get some cabin pressurization going. Okay, so canopy closed and locked. Let me go ahead and crack my valve right here. Let me check one thing though. I wanted to last time to see if my theory about the pneumatic system being like a backup cabin pressurization system was correct. Let me try cracking this valve real quick, and this is the one that's labeled cockpit filling valve. Open it up, and no, it doesn't do what I thought it might do. I thought that might be like a little backup cabin pressurization system. Let me try this valve. I don't think that's going to do anything at all. No, if that had worked, I would have expected this gauge, which is telling me my differential or delta between ambient and cockpit pressure. Right now it's at 0. I would have expected that to start coming up if that had done what I thought it did. I have some more reading and more research to do yet on the function of these two valves, but the one that I really want to get is this one right here. I just want to open it up, and this one does pressurize the cockpit. I just turn it over so that the indicator is pointing towards the blue section. That's going to get good cold cockpit air flowing in. I can see the gauge coming up now, telling me that I pressurized my cockpit. and I've got a good seal. Okay, so from there, I'm pretty much ready to taxi after I get my main oxygen valve opened up. And okay, we're looking good. Now, let me go to the checklist real quick and see if there was anything else that I wanted. Okay, make sure hydraulic boost lever is forward on. That's this aileron hydraulic boost control right here. Okay, I've got that one on. Okay, and everything else is perfectly normal here as far as temperatures, and I haven't really looked at this gauge that much, and this I would imagine is fuel pressure, engine oil pressure, and engine oil temperature. So, okay, it's all in the blue, it's all in the normal setting. And speaking of that, now that I've got Chuck Owl's guide up here, he has everything labeled. He's gone through and translated everything, all the stuff that I was meaning to do myself. Luckily, he's done it all for me. So the upper one is fuel pressure, so that's well within limits. The bottom left is oil pressure, that's good, and the bottom right one is oil temperature, which is good as well. And if you're having trouble reading the text, I'm having the same trouble here. It's just the way that it was compressed as it got displayed on the kneeboard. This guide comes in a PDF file, and it's very, very easy to read, well put together too. Okay, now, since I am going to be taking off this time, let me think a little bit more about my instruments right here. Now, my ADI, or attitude indicator, is calibrated, it's set. There's nothing else that I really need to do there. Radar altimeter, I'll go on it, so it was a press of the button that turned it on. Now it's back off. I'll turn it on, and I will leave it on in preparation for takeoff. And just thinking about other things as I saw the radar altimeter cycle right there, thinking about other things that I would want to check while I'm here in the chocks. Obviously, normal indications on the engines. Let me pull the throttle back just a touch to get it back down to 5,000 RPMs. Everything else is looking good. Now I need to start thinking about, okay, how do I communicate with the taxis, or with the tower to request taxi? Let me bring the kneeboard back up. And I'm going to have a section in here that covers the communications as well as a whole lot of other stuff. So let me go back here to the UHF radio tutorial. And I have a sheet here that gives me frequencies, the default frequencies for all the airfields that are included in this Black Sea map. And this is actually done by U-Boats, another great community member who does a lot of neat stuff like this and always has useful information if you're looking on the DCS forums, and I'll have a link to this as well. But it gives me the frequencies for Krimsk, 3.9, 156 is the wave number, and it gives me the frequencies for the NDB stations so that I can do some navigation. But the one that the two that I'm worried about right here are the frequency for the ATC station, that's 3.9 megahertz, and also the ATC wave number, 156. Now, I don't really want to get too deep into the communications right now because I just want to get the aircraft up and fly it. That's the sort of thing that I could just sit here, and I often do, just for hours going over the technical details, and I never actually fly the aircraft. I wanted to fly the aircraft, that's why I'm up today in it. So let me come back to the takeoff procedure, and we'll worry about communications next time and navigation next time. That's going to take a little bit of digging and a little bit more research, and I might have it set up here so that it is set to the right frequency and right settings anyway. If I just take the default one, and yeah, it is. It's set up correctly. So clear to taxi runway 22. Runway 22 is going to be the one that is in the opposite direction of this orientation, and you can see down here on my HSI that right now I'm facing about 04022 is pretty much reciprocal to that. Well, it is actually reciprocal to 04. So yeah, exactly opposite direction. So I need to come out here, taxi to my left, all the way down to the other end of the airfield and back. Now let me stow the checklist and we'll get back into the taxi procedure. And this was very, very straightforward. It's just, okay, the chocks are already removed. I didn't have the crew chief install them at all. I do need to remove external power though. So let me go back to F11 and ground crew electric power off. And it just occurred to me that I did make another procedural error there. I was not supposed to turn my battery on until after ground power was removed. It's no harm though. Okay, so ground power is off, and let me go ahead and taxi. So everything's clear. Just going to push the Throttle forward. Just enough to get me rolling. Do a quick check of the brakes. Okay, good brakes. Okay, let's take it on out and turn right. So throttle back up. And I'm just going to use differential braking along with the braking lever right there on my stick to take it on around here. Okay, a little bit more braking. Okay, perfect. Now, to straighten it back out, okay, a little bit of braking with the differential in the opposite direction. Okay, that's actually very, very comfortable to do that. I'll just take a left right here. So slow myself down just a little bit. Okay, left-hand turn, differential braking, just brake lever held and the rudder to the left, and catch it before it takes me too far around to the left. Okay, so you have to think ahead. That's one thing that, you know, from the flying the World War II aircraft, where it's all done through differential braking, or the MiG-21 as it's represented now. It takes a little bit of planning and a little bit of forethought into planning out your taxi turns. But okay, as I roll down the runway, if anything else occurs to me before I get to the end of the runway, I'll come back. But I'll see you at the end of the runway. Okay, coming up on the runway now. So what I'm going to do is just hold care for a minute, go through the procedure, read through it real quick, make sure that I understand what's going to be coming up. Okay, so takeoff, and this is from Chuck Al's guide, and I'll also look at the quick start manual to see if anything differs. And yeah, many people have their own way of taking off. Here's mine. So we're going to be using the Chuck Al procedure this time. Line up on the runway using your brake and rudder pedals. Okay, make sure the flaps are up and your air brakes are retracted. So it looks like Chuck likes to do flaps up. I might do that myself. I'll try it first with the flaps in the intermediate 20-degree position. And I think in the end, I think Chuck might have a point here. A lot of times, at least to me, it's a little bit more manageable and controllable on the takeoff roll, even if the procedure calls for flaps to take off with 0 flaps. But I'll explain that once I get on the roll. Okay, hold brakes and throttle up to 8,000 to 9,000 RPM, and that's a good opportunity also when I do that to check engine instruments and make sure that the temperatures, pressures, and everything there is as expected. Pull back slightly when I reach 180 to 190 kilometers per hour. Rotate at 220 to 230. So that's going to be, okay, slightly back, and then, okay, then fly it off the runway or rotate or whatever you want to take that to mean at 220 to 230. Take special care not to pull too hard, or you will stall, crash, and burn. That's good advice. Okay, then I go gear up. Once airborne, make sure your flaps are set to neutral. Okay, neutral, was there, okay, retract, neutral, 20 and 55 degrees, so 4 settings on the flap. I just realized this for the first time, that, okay, the up position is the retract setting. If I go down, I have neutral, 20 and 55 degrees, so I'll have to see this in action. I kind of hate to touch it right now, but well, I was going to go 20 degrees down anyway. Let me do that. Okay, so there's the 20 degrees, and I can see the indicator coming up telling me that I'm in 20 degrees. Now, okay, so it starts the neutral position. I go up to retract, and yeah, they just retracted. Back to the neutral position. Okay, so let me start with them in the 20 degree flap down position. Then the indicator comes back up. Okay, I see what's going on there. Okay, now, maintain a climb rate of about 7 to 8 meters per second at a climb speed of 500 kilometers per hour. And then we have it looks like a little visual out of one of the Russian language, the actual flight manual, in fact. Okay, so there we go, 8 to 9,000 RPM, 180 to 190, slide back on the stick, and it looks like I'm just lifting the nose wheel. And you can see in the little visual depiction here that I'm just going to pull the nose up so that the nose is about level with the horizon, and then I'll expect to either the aircraft will fly itself off the runway, or I go back just a touch more just to unstick the aircraft and fly it off, and then go gear up, and then go, well, flaps up in my case since I have them down. And once I get my flaps up, I go back to the neutral position on the flap lever. Okay, that's straightforward enough. And landing, it would be wise of me to read the landing portion right now, but I'm going to hold off on that and just go straight into the takeoff. So, okay, 180, 190 is the, I guess, the key there that I'm going to remember. That's the rotation speed. And as always with this, I mean, there are always a lot more considerations that go into flying an aircraft or taking off in an aircraft. You know, you have to make sure that you have enough runway to be able to take off in, crosswind, speeds where, you know, if you exceed a certain speed, then, you know, you'll either abort the takeoff if something bad happens, or you'll continue with the takeoff. So there's a whole lot of other stuff that goes into this, but I'm going to keep it extremely simple. Okay, I'm clear for takeoff and line up on the runway. Just trying to line it up and try to kind of keep my nose gear more or less centered, although once I get on the roll, it's going to center itself up. Okay, so I'm going to hold the brakes, have a quick look around, see if there's anything else that I wanted to do. I think that's going to be it. Okay, let me slowly advance to, between 8 and 9,000 RPM. And I'm going to check my engine instruments. And that was it, wasn't it? Is that the right, or at least the RPM that was called out here? Yeah. 8 to 9. And I wonder, do you keep it there or do you go full throttle? It doesn't really say. It doesn't really matter. I have plenty of runway. So if the procedure is just to keep it at about 8,500 RPM and then just roll out on the takeoff at that, that's fine. Okay, temperature's looking good. Pressures on oil, fuel, and oil temperature is looking fine. Okay, my HSI, yep, pointing 220, which is the runway heading. Okay, ADI is looking good. Everything else is exactly as it needs to be. Altimeter is still at the 0 setting. Okay, and in the procedure also it tells me at some point to retract this locking lever for the gear. I'm not going to do that, in fact, until I'm airborne. There's just something about pulling that lever back before I'm ready to retract the gear. I'll have plenty of time to reach down there and do it as I get airborne. It doesn't look like there's anything other than the mechanical function to it, so there's no harm in leaving it there. And of course, trim. It doesn't really tell me to do anything with my trim for my elevator, but I've got the light on telling me that my elevator trim is centered, so we'll leave it there. I will go my nose takeoff and taxi light on for this portion of it. And yeah, that's it. Okay, let's go ahead and zoom back out. Okay, let's release the brakes and get on the roll. Okay, I think the answer here is going to be that I do advance the throttle to full. That was just way too low for that to be the right answer. Okay, so let me just, again, using differential braking at first and then rudder, keep it tracking down the runway. Okay, there's about 180, 190, rotate nose about even with the horizon, flies off at about 240, just as advertised. Okay, let me go gear unlock, gear up. I'm sorry, that should be gear down. And or that went gear down. There was a neutral position to that, which I didn't catch on to. I'm going to pull the throttle back. Okay, my gear are retracted. Yeah, gear up and lock. And I've got 3 red lights telling me that is in fact the case. Now let me go flaps. That's the neutral position. Let me go flaps retract. Yeah, I've got my indicator back up telling me my flaps are retracted, and I'll go back to the neutral position there.